Hello, everyone that has joined us. Thank you for being with us this evening as we present our reopening plan for Amherst Middle School. We'll be starting the webinar in just about 3 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on such a beautiful August evening to hear a little bit more about Amherst Middle School's reopening plan. We're really excited to share the full details here with you today, and hopefully you've also had a chance to check out our Word document. We'll make sure we get that link out to you as well at the end of the evening. We're really proud of this plan. It truly is a product of our entire community of learners, and thank you to all of you, staff, students, community members, parents, faculty, all across the board who've shared ideas with us and helped us to really refine this plan so that it's the product of our whole community and meets the needs of our whole community of learners. You can see that our quote kind of for the evening is that we are one community of learners. And this has been a guiding principle for us throughout this process as we make decisions, that no matter where learning takes place, in what modality, with what teacher, and what grade level, and what a student needs, we are truly united in that we are one community of learners at Amherst Middle School. I'm excited to have with me tonight some other administrators and our school nurses. So I have Heather Jennings, our Assistant Principal for Student Services, John Schuttinger, our Assistant Principal of Operations, Sue Sarraf and Anne Benoit, our amazing school nurses here at AMS. And also joining us is Meg Beauchamp, who is our Director of Student Services for the district. Again, we're excited to share our plan with you and look forward to answering your questions as we go through the evening. So when we look at our school community and we look at the decisions, we are really approaching this from a whole child standpoint. That is, we want every child to feel healthy, safe, supported, engaged, and challenged. That really is the lens through which we make all of our decisions to make the best choices for our students and to help guide them in their learning process. You'll notice that I started with healthy and safe. We know that for our students, being healthy and safe, and really for all of us, that is primary to being able to learn. If we don't feel healthy and safe in our environment and don't have the opportunity to have those basic needs met, then no true learning can take place. So with that in mind, we wanted to start our evening by sharing with you our processes and procedures and how we plan on supporting all of our students and really our whole community of learners to make sure that there's a healthy and safe learning environment for all. As we go through the evening, we'll share out with you all of the different aspects of the student's day and get you a sense of what life will look like, both here for our on-campus learners and also our online learners. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this first portion over to Sue Sarraf, one of our school nurses, and John Schuttinger to talk through what this means about our healthy and safe learning environment. I'll remind you that if you have questions throughout this evening, please utilize the Q&A feature, and we'll do our best to answer those questions as we go and also at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. Parents will screen their child daily at home prior to sending them to school for the following. Check their temperature. If it's 100 or greater, please don't send them to school. If they have chills, a headache, GI symptoms, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or a stomachache, upper respiratory symptoms such as a cough, sore throat, runny nose, or shortness of breath, also fatigue, body aches, loss of taste or smell, or known exposure to COVID-19 person. Also, if they've recently traveled outside of New England. Now, if the answer to any of those questions is yes, then the child should remain home. However, existing chronic conditions or pre-existing conditions, including but not limited to migraines, Lyme, asthma, or allergies, should be documented on a student's health record, and that will help the school nurses differentiate between a chronic condition and COVID symptoms.
And Sue, if I'm not mistaken, that's probably the most important piece to remind families that we really need to know those pre-existing conditions just so we can correctly alert the families in knowing what's happening for their student, correct?
Absolutely. And let's say the morning of, if your child has a stomachache, let's say because they ate something the night before that disagreed with them, you can call us or email us and let us know those little bits and pieces of information. It will really help us differentiate from the COVID symptoms. Communication is key.
Absolutely. How about the next slide?
The protocols for visits have been updated for the coming school year. Teachers will call the health office if they have a student that they would like the nurse to see. And then the nurse will go to the classroom to assess the child, and we'll do this in a confidential manner. Nurses will also bring daily schedule of meds to the students and administer them near their classroom. And students requiring morning medications will take their medicine at home, and this will decrease traffic in the health office. As far as staff goes, staff will self-check their temperatures at home and prior to entry to the school building every day, and they'll complete symptom questionnaires as designated by the SAU. Thermometers and PPE will be located at the designated entrances for the staff for them to use prior to entering the building. If a child or staff presents with any of the above symptoms that we mentioned, even if they're mild symptoms and they haven't previously reported them, then they will be dismissed. Once a child is dismissed, they will be required to contact their primary care provider and be tested for COVID-19. The person may return to school with proof of a negative test result, and there'll be a required quarantine of 10 consecutive days after dismissal while test results are pending, or if no test was done. There's also a requirement to be a 24-hour symptom-free before returning to school, without the use of Tylenol or ibuprofen. These are our state guidelines. Also, siblings from the same household may be dismissed as well. Parents will be required to sign off on these above guidelines during the registration process and to show understanding and acknowledgement of them. And when a child is to be dismissed, we are asking that the parent guardian call the school upon arrival, and their child will be escorted from the school building to the parent or guardian.
That's great, Sue. Somebody just asked the question about how would we learn about that, and I believe it's mainly through the registration process, correct? We would know about pre-existing condition.
Yes, on the health form, they will say, does your child have any medical conditions or health-related issues? And that's where that will go. And we'll make note of that on their medical record.
Right, and that's something that's kept confidential within our office and within our system, correct?
Extremely confidential, right. And if something happens or occurs after the registration process, then they can send an email or give us a call. And we can talk and we can document it.
Right. And then I imagine if something just comes up throughout the year, let's say it's now October, we're still in school, and a condition comes up that we need to know of that's not COVID, again, it'd be great to have that information to us. So the parents would probably bring in a doctor's note or communicate with you directly, right? You or Ms. Benoit to let you know that information.
Absolutely, and we'll keep that in our health record so we will know when we assess the child. We'll take that into consideration.
Excellent. So now we're going through morning arrival. My name is John Schuttinger. I'm the newest add to the building as your assistant principal, and very happy and proud to be here, as well as a dad in the community. So I feel that pain as well sometimes. And just going through our arrival process. So those of you who are new to the community of Amherst and knowing a little bit already about school and how it works, buses will pick up prior to this time, but the arrival time is actually a drop-off time for buses. Cars tend to be around that 7:15 time or so, where students start arriving on campus. Our school day begins promptly at 7:30, or we'll be actually in the building. I will say for those of you tuning in that have been familiar with the middle school, whether have older children been here or current children are here the past year or so, know that we usually have a morning recess that will no longer be occurring outside. We're actually looking for students to come right into the building. But we do want to remind you of some of the bullet points here of having things that happen prior to, right? Masks will be expected in the building. So of course, before leaving your car, students are being reminded, hopefully by you, to remind them to put their mask on before entering the building or exiting the car, actually, sorry. And the same thing for bus students. We'd expect you to be doing the same at your bus stop. So once you get to the stop, having your mask on and ready to board the bus. Next slide, after morning arrival. We gave you some, we'll be giving you some pictures in a second, as you kind of got a glimpse of there. But looking at the classroom environment. So the classroom environment, the physical structures and routines of our day. There's a lot that's been happening, obviously, here to get ready for our students as you select that option soon enough, choosing to send your students here to us. A couple of the bullet points here, just want to make really fresh and aware. Probably more so for your students' concern is that lockers will not be used this year in the middle school at all. We cannot follow the guidelines nor safety expectations with having students use lockers and be so close together getting their stuff in. So we're asking them, obviously, to keep their backpack with them throughout the day. As you'll see later in the schedule, there's not much movement throughout the day, but again, they would have everything with them that's necessary. It's also critical that they pump in, pump out is kind of our slogan or phrase at the moment, where we have dispensers in every single space, every single classroom for hand sanitizer. So as a student walks in the room, they can pump in, get sanitizer in their hands and be able to go to their desk. And then again, before leaving the room, they would do the same as pump out to leave the room. We will provide wipes in the classrooms. So let's say a student was in the classroom, and that's where we'll get to also soon enough, find out that they're going to have lunch in that classroom. They have the ability to wipe down their table prior to having lunch. We would also suggest, and if they choose to, wipe it down when they first come in, even though we have our own protocol set up to be cleaning the night before, something a student might want to do just to feel comfortable, and we totally appreciate that. And lastly, just to know that we are doing some furniture upgrades, which was actually part of the FY20. So this current year's budget, thank you voters for approving the budget, and looking at some individual desks. So we're actually starting to replace some of our furniture, which is really a great thing at this time because we have some newer furniture coming in, and we're starting to place those in certain rooms as we start to move about the building, and probably in successive years continue to replace other components of that furniture. We're also going to be looking at outdoor structures. You might have heard, if you have students or tuned into the Clark Wilkins group, they talked about tents. We are looking at the same large size tents to hold a group of 15 or so students outside. So we're looking at a couple of those for spaces on property so that staff and students have the ability to flex the space, not just use what's inside, but also use what's outside. We're also looking to beef up some of our access points, our wireless access points, so that students outside would be able to bring devices and continue to use their space for learning on technology, or again, use the outside environment if at all possible. A teacher might even consider to take their kid or students to the gymnasium if that is a free space to use at that time. See here just some of the spaces and what we've started to do with our seating. Looks like something out of a book or pictures from classrooms long ago where we had students so spaced apart in rows and such, but we don't really enjoy this. But we know this is for the safety of all, as well as our students and our staff. So we've continued to do this model, and again, some of these desks will be updated in the coming weeks with our newer furniture.
And John, I would just add to that, that right now in all the classrooms we're setting up, we're really striving for that 6 feet of distance between desks, which is what you see here, 6 feet of distance between students. That's the standard that we're trying to set, and we'll always have that between 3 and 6 feet. But right now, the rooms that you're looking at do reflect that 6 feet of social distance between students.
That is correct. Thank you. Yes, there are 6 feet between those seats. Tables are a little bit larger, but again, where the students' distance is from each person. Lunch and recess. So here's some of the points about lunch and recess as we go forward. We're looking at lunch. We'll be outside whenever possible. We do, though, realize the challenges as what our typical lunch would have looked like with a grade level in the cafeteria. So as I said before, lunch will not be in the cafeteria this year. However, lunch offerings will still be there, so students will be able to access your lunch accounts, in a sense, families, to purchase items such as a cold lunch or a hot lunch. We were just talking today with food services, and we'll continue to work with them over the next few weeks before the year starts off. At this point, we're looking at hot options and cold options each day for students to choose from. We're not sure necessarily the numbers by comparison to previous years and how families feel comfortable with sending their student to buy lunch instead of bringing lunch, but we'll be looking and engaging that as the weeks come up. But do know that we will be sending students in a staggered pace to the cafeteria. We do have a block of time, again, you'll see in the schedule, but we will be moving different groups through the cafeteria at different times to get lunch for those students retrieving lunch and going back to their classrooms to enjoy lunch with their class. We will look at a breakfast option. We're saying right now we probably will not have that up and running. So for those of you who are familiar with the program, or unfamiliar, sorry, with the program, what we had in the past was basically a grab-and-go type of breakfast service where there are items available and students would grab that, literally purchase it, and then go to their class. This time we're not exactly sure how that's going to fully operate, but we are talking about the possibility again because we know that did accommodate quite a number of our students who really enjoyed having that breakfast item to start off their day here at school. Every student this year, this might be a surprise to your 7th and 8th graders, every student will have recess this year. So we're working on that through the pacing of moving students through this guided study, also recess and lunch during this time period of a lunchtime. And also looking at our outdoor spaces, as I noted here with the walking path, we're looking at making that one of the options and looking at recess spaces and how we can create smaller groups of organized activities that aren't necessarily shared items. I will say to some of those of you who are looking forward to coming back and playing Gaga ball, having one ball bounced around between several people in a pit, that will not be played because, again, the concerns of the ball and obviously the inability to keep that disinfected between hits too fast.
Thanks, John. And I'll just add here that a number of parents have expressed interest in longer lunch periods in the past. And you'll see this later when we show you our schedule, but this lunch and recess block actually allows for about 45 minutes of lunch and recess for every student. So it offers a little bit more flex in there too for those who might want to take a little longer to eat or those who might want to take a little longer to have that recess break.
Excellent, thank you. Outdoor learning spaces, touched on a little again. We're looking forward to the support of the PTA, and some community members have already reached out and wanting to support the schools here in Amherst with outdoor spaces. Again, they could be those tents you might be familiar with, though not as large, as you might have seen in an outdoor venue of some sort. Also increasing the wireless, as I said. And again, thank you to the PTA for Amherst, who has already reached out to us and willing to support us in those possibilities. At dismissal time, again, looking a little different than typical. So for those of us who are new, such as myself in this building, it's not really that different because we haven't had the experience. But staggered dismissal starts at 2:24. We'll have specific options that are coming up and what that actually looks like for those students, because we, again, don't know exactly who will be here on campus compared to those who want to be remote. Bus students will head over to the bus loop. If you're, again, unfamiliar, in Souhegan, when you come up the main drive, there's a loop that the students of middle school and high school from both properties actually take each morning and each afternoon. It drops off on our side, and our students come over on a paved path into the building. So we would send our students out first for buses with many staff members to guide them and direct them in getting over to their buses, and then we would start our car dismissal. We're looking currently, and spoiler alert, in the next week or so, we might be looking for some of you to actually volunteer your time, however short it may be, to drive over and just drive through the two-loop system that we've devised in the system set of planning that we're going through with Amherst PD. This is a quick aerial shot of what it might look like. So our exit would become an enter and exit. It is wide enough for 2 cars to pass. We're looking to have, again, an idea at the moment. We need to find out more details from families of who's actually coming. But if we broke the alphabet down in half, the A through Ks would come in the typical entrance over by the parking lot, as you can see on the far right, and L through Z names would come in on that exit. And then again, both of you would hug along the right-hand sides and come across. The idea for us is that we actually have students stationed out in areas where the alphabet would be listed. So let's say A through F would be right here, again, with a staff member and again, spaced safely so that they can easily access those cars. So you know what spot you would be looking for your student. And as students get picked up, again, the movement would continue. And we're looking at the flow, again, with Amherst PD of how traffic would be able to move in and out of that and move pretty efficiently. That's our hope. If you're dismissing your child early, as you can see by that last point there, we ask you to enter the front vestibule, as has happened in the past, and hit the buzzer. We will stay communicating with you through the buzzer system. Again, as Nurse Sue Sarraf has mentioned to you, students are in the building and the staff members in the building, but visitors at this point are not coming in the building. That would include you as a parent picking up your child. You will come into that vestibule area and cue us as to your ID and what student you're looking for, and we would bring the student to you and then dismiss from the vestibule area. It's not warm and fuzzy or friendly as we liked in the past, and enjoyed having you come in and welcomed you. But again, these are very different times, as we're well aware, as we go through stores and other locations throughout our day.
Thank you, John. So as you can see, those are our plans currently for really providing a healthy and safe environment for your students from a physical standpoint. But we know that it's not just about physical health and safety. It's also about social emotional wellness and mental health and safety. And so everything that we've done has really been intentional in trying to promote that whole child approach again. And so you'll see here that we're about to talk about how we plan to meet the needs of all of your students to make sure that they have that next level of safety too, so that they can be available to learn throughout their school day. So what I will share with you now is just an overview of our schedule. And I know a schedule is a physical piece, but want to intro this next section to let you know that every decision and every piece of our schedule was done with great intention and a lot of thought and a lot of feedback. And again, feedback that started last April from students and staff and families about what works and what needs to be improved upon. Really focusing again on that one community approach and that whole child approach. So each segment of our schedule we'll go through here over the course of the next few minutes is really intentional in its design, and we hope to share that out with you. Some of the key pieces of our schedule was that we had to maintain and make sure that we had time for social emotional connections and relationship building and learning. And that goes for both our remote learners and for our on-campus learners. So everything is designed so that those two things mirror one another, so that again, it really unites us in one community. We know that over the next several months that we are facing a very dynamic situation, and we want to be flexible and able to adapt to that and adapt to the needs of our community. So in order to do that, we've really focused on having common experiences for both our online learners and our on-campus learners. It was also really critical for us to make sure that there's time built in the day for students to help design, to take breaks, all of those pieces. So we're going to talk through each of these pieces, but first I want to focus on how we're going to meet the social emotional needs of all of our students and our staff as we come back together in these next couple of weeks. So primary to meeting this and building relationships are really looking at two different features in our school, both of which fall under the umbrella of our anchoring adult. You've heard us talk at the SAU level about an anchoring adult and what that looks like. And the purpose of this component is really to build supportive relationships with students, to act as a consistent anchor that while their learning modality might change, while a teacher might change for them, but really there is a common point person to anchor that student's experience through the entire year. And not only for the student, but as a point person for the family as well, to help direct them to the resources they need to be successful. If we're going to help our students make over a year's worth of growth in this next academic school year, then we really need to be working together and making sure that all of these needs are met. So in our 5th grade, we're following a morning meeting model, and this block of time, I should say, is designed to greet students. So it is the first block of time as students come in the day. We thought long and hard about the placement of this and feedback from students and from staff, as well as we need to start the day with relationships first, right? It's about building that emotional safety so that we can be available to learn. So rather than walking in the door and focusing on academics the second you walk in, or focusing on remediation or support you need, it's really meant to say, welcome to school, welcome, I see you, I hear you, how are you today? And it's a chance for us to gauge how students are doing so that we can make sure that their needs are met before we try to do any of that learning process. In 5th grade, that morning meeting model is really a link between the middle school and Clark Wilkins School. So Clark Wilkins has followed a morning meeting model, and this is really going to offer a bridge for our students. So for our 5th graders who are new, something familiar to walk into, and it'll start with that, whoever their core teacher is for the day. And again, that's designed to help limit movement so there's not as much passing in the hallways and really provides a consistent experience for that student for the day. On Thursdays, and again, when we get into the schedule, you'll see more, but on Thursdays, 5th graders have an integrated arts for their day. That is their designated day for integrated arts. And they'll meet with an anchoring adult that day who will be one of the 5th grade teachers, but that person will be consistent through the whole year. So if their cores change or they go remote or come in person, that will be a consistent anchor for them. In 6th through 8th grade, we're really excited to launch our Launchpad, which has been a work in progress for well over a year now. And the mission of this Launchpad is really to connect students and adults, right? We are connectors of people. That is at the heart of who we are as educators. This year, our Launchpad groups are going to remain same grade level groups. So if you've tuned into Launchpad in the past, you know that we're really committed to creating these as multi-age groups to really meet the various developmental needs in the middle school. But this year, to simplify and really meet the needs of our learners and provide the safest environment possible, we've decided to keep them as common grade level groups. And both of these pieces are really a mix of online and on-campus learners. So we've thought really hard, and I will say every decision that we've made has really been influenced by all the feedback we've received. And a lot of consideration has gone into that format. And given the dynamic nature of this year and our commitment to being one community of learners, we've really decided that this is the best way forward to make sure that all of our students feel included, no matter what modality they are, no matter what segment, and really have that consistent anchor and touch point for the entire year. Now I'm going to turn it over to Heather Jennings to talk a little bit more about another aspect of meeting your students' social emotional needs throughout the day.
Thanks, Bethany. So another piece of our schedule is directed study. And within that, directed study is within that smart lunch. So directed study is a 45-minute segment of time within a smart lunch. And part of that, it will be SEL, social emotional learning, and wellness activities. These activities will be guided by our SEL team, which could consist of school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists, and they'll develop activities that are developmentally appropriate lessons. They may hold small groups based on needs. They'll also have some self-directed activities that students can choose to engage in during that time, and these will be introduced to the students during that SEL time in their smart lunch. The goal and the purpose of this wellness time is to support students as they return to school and how they navigate the additional stressors and anxieties they may be experiencing, as well as teaching them to practice self-awareness and health skills. Our SEL team will provide tools to our students to navigate everyday obstacles and stressors and identify and address any social emotional needs in a timely manner. Additionally, within the Smart Lunch time, there'll be academic segments, and we'll get into that a little later. But right now, we're just focusing on that social emotional piece.
And I'll just add, again, we really encourage you to check out our full reopening plan document because you'll see the schedules for every single grade level there. The Smart Lunch we're referring to is an hour-and-a-half block in the middle of the day. And this directed study is one piece of it. So it's that 45 minutes of lunch and recess and 45 minutes of directed study for students. As Heather said, we'll share with you the academic portion of that directed study in just a few moments.
So now that we covered our foundation to how we're going to bring students back into our building, being safe and healthy and addressing social and emotional needs, we're going to talk through some of our teacher teaming structures and our learning structures. So I'm going to hand it back over to Bethany.
Thank you. So really key to all of this work and at the heart, as you all know, of all of our schools are our amazing teachers. And they're excited to welcome your students back, whether your student decides to be an online learner or an on-campus learner. I think that I speak for everyone when I say we really miss our kids and can't wait to greet them all and start the school year off, no matter what modality everyone chooses. So our teachers, again, are at the heart of how this will all work. And again, our goal is to really create that flexibility for a really dynamic year. And so to provide that family choice, that student choice, that teacher choice from segment to segment as we go through the year. So in order to meet this, we've broken our teachers up into teacher teams. So a teacher team is just, instead of looking at a teacher as a single entity, it's really looking at teachers who teach a common grade level and a common content area. So for example, in 5th grade, we have a STEM teacher team, which consists of 4 teachers, and a humanities teacher team that consists of 4 teachers. The same goes for 6th grade. In 7th and 8th grade, we've combined the teachers to create this upper school 7th and 8th grade teacher teams. Now that doesn't mean that we're mixing 7th and 8th grade students, but it means that our 7th and 8th grade teachers are working together as a teacher team to meet the needs of 7th grade students and our 8th grade students. They'll work collaboratively. They're going to work very closely together to create common experiences. Again, one community of learners for all of our students, regardless of the modality. So highly collaborative teams designing a common curriculum for all of our students from segment to segment as we go through the year. What this does mean is that there is some flexibility for students as well. So while you might be assigned to a particular teacher, once we know what you're electing to start this first segment, we're really going to focus on making sure that your child gets a chance to know different teachers across that teacher team. Because as we go from one segment to the next, if your child chooses to, and you as a family elect to go and be an online learner and go remote, then you may have a different teacher than you had initially for the previous segment. This gives us the flexibility based on student needs and their learning needs. Again, we're focused on that year of growth to make adjustments from segment to segment. And it also offers the opportunity to make adjustments to make sure that we're managing our class sizes and such so that we're really meeting the needs of both our online learners and our on-campus learners as we move from segment to segment. Integrated arts doesn't have the same number of teachers as our core teaching area, so there's a little bit of a different structure there that I'll talk through in just a minute. And again, Google Classroom is really going to be our common launching point across the whole school, whether you are an online learner or an on-campus learner. That's really going to be the foundation of where students go to interact with their teachers, to find Zoom links, to find resources, and that will be common across online learning and on-campus learning. Again, we have one curriculum, we have one set of assessments, and we're really working to create a unified experience there. Along those lines, so Amherst Middle School will be one-to-one next year. On a parent survey you'll be getting this week where you indicate your modality for this first segment. You'll also be asked about technology. And if you have a dedicated computer at home for your student to use, we'll make sure that every student has the technology that they need to be successful. But we may need some help in getting us started. Many computers right now are really on back order across the country, as you might imagine. We'll make sure everybody has what they need, but if you are able and have a device at home, we may be asking if that's okay for your student to use, and more information will be coming on that. Next, I want to talk a little bit about why the schedule looks the way it does. And that slide that I showed initially with the schedule, you might notice that instruction is really broken into 2 blocks of time each day. There's an AM core essentially and a PM core essentially. In 5th and 6th grade, students will stay in that same core for the entire day. So if you start your day and it's a STEM day and you start with your STEM teacher, you'll be with that teacher throughout the whole day in 5th and 6th grade. And that really helps us to create a little bit more of a self-contained classroom. But it's really important to know that students will mix. We're trying to limit mixing of students throughout the day, but it's not a true isolated model where they only will interact with those same 15 students or 16 students throughout the day. Instead, think about it as half of the on-campus learners for a particular grade level may interact with each other. So for example, if I have 3 groups of on-campus STEM learners, those 3 groups of students may interact in a special or at recess, still socially distanced in those areas. So there's some opportunity and some flexibility there. That same thing goes for 7th grade. And we really need to do that for a couple of different reasons. Again, health and safety is primary and a big focus here, and which is why we've worked so hard to make sure we've got the right separation, and we're gonna work with students on hygiene and mask wearing and all of those pieces. But we know that students have different learning needs, and so we don't want to track students in an artificial set of classes. We really want to make sure that we're meeting the best needs of students as they go. And especially as our learners get older, they need that opportunity to work with other students in their grade level, but still limiting that to maintain some safety there. So beyond that piece, why blocks? Why this larger chunk of time beyond the safety piece? What does it mean for academics? Well, a larger block of time really allows our teachers to take deeper dives into the curriculum. So we're very much focused on going deep with our students and not just scratching the surface on learning. We want them to have a deep understanding and be able to apply learning, right? We want our students to be curators of information and curators of knowledge rather than just data processors, right? So it's not just about memorization or skill and drill, but really about deep understanding and application. So these longer blocks of time allow us the opportunity to dive into that. It also allows for some what we call flexible learning structures, which really just means that you're not going to be doing the same thing for the entire time. But with a larger block of time, teachers can get really creative with how they use that time and move students from discussions to independent work to collaboration, move students outside as the day goes, offer some mask breaks in there as well, and really be creative in what that time looks like rather than trying to fit an activity into a smaller block of time. And this also was a big piece of feedback from the spring where students and teachers said, well, jumping from one class to another, from social studies to ELA to math to science Zooms all day, it was just too much. And so if we want students to really be able to learn, then we have to slow that pace down so that they can focus deeply. And by focusing on just 2 content areas a day, so again, in 5th and 6th, if it's a STEM day, it's that science and mathematics. In 7th and 8th, they'll have 2 academic cores a day, and they'll meet with the opposite classes on the next day. So it's a modified block schedule. That allows them to focus on that content area, focus on any activity out of school on that content area, rather than being divided in so many places. So we're really looking forward to this as an opportunity to go deeper with our students and really get them excited about some different kinds of learning. Also with our integrated arts, as you can imagine, there's some changes here as well. So our schedule allows for every student in the school and on campus and remote to have 1 full day of integrated arts instruction each week. Again, this helps us to minimize transitions in the building and offers those larger blocks of time. Just like on a core academic day, on an integrated arts day, a student will participate in 2 different integrated arts courses. In 5th and 6th grade, each integrated arts course lasts for about 3 segments, and in 7th and 8th for 2 segments. And again, they'll be designed so that if from segment to segment, a student goes remote or comes back in person, that can be a really seamless a process as we can anticipate and work to support. In order to really maintain that healthy and safe environment, some of our classes will look differently this year. So music, band, and chorus, there's been a lot of research out there by the professional organizations, and we're modifying those 2 this year to be a general music class for all of our students. We're also looking at some small group instruction possibilities for band and students who want to continue their playing. Again, some of these are compromises that we have to make for health and safety, not necessarily what we want to go, and we want to let you know that we're committed to these programs in our future too. So this isn't a sign of things changing. This is really from a health and safety standpoint. But we'll be sending out a survey looking, asking parents, are you interested in small group instruction for your band student? So that we can plan accordingly and start to develop what that might look like. Also, PE will look differently this year. So our PE program will be incorporated as part of our wellness program. So students will participate in health, and while they're in their health segments, there'll also be PE standards that they're addressing and working towards. We're also really working towards a strong school-home connection here. So we're going to be developing monthly and segment-based challenges, and we're going to encourage all of our families out there to join in with their students, get physically active to meet some of these different standards and some of these things that we're trying to teach students, make sure that we're doing this safely and making sure we're keeping everyone healthy, but really encourage this as some off-screen family time to really promote healthy lifestyle and healthy habits as well. The last special I want to talk a little bit about is world language. So world language also falls into this this same schedule. So students in the past have been able to offer world language for a full year every other day. Unfortunately, that's not possible this year, but we have some things in place to help supplement world language. So world language will follow the same integrated arts course schedule. For our 8th graders, we sent out a survey. We are working right now with a VLAX course, depending on our numbers. So we have an opportunity to partner with VLAX to make sure that your student gets a full, it would be Spanish 1 high school credit course or French 1 a high school credit course. So that will be an option for families. If in addition to the coursework we can offer here at school, if you're interested in your student being able to enter high school at a world language level 2, then we're partnering with VLAX to be able to support you and support your students in that. We want to honor that they've had 2 years of instruction in this language, and we want to offer families and students who are interested an opportunity to continue with that. Oh, and last but not least, for our online learners, integrated arts will be asynchronous, meaning that students will have some flexibility in how and when they complete them. So students, those lessons again will be posted in Google Classroom, and they'll mirror the lessons that are happening in the classroom. So they'll be posted in the classroom on the day that a student is scheduled for integrated arts and an opportunity for them to engage. And then we'll also have time during EAGLE and also during directed study possibly for our online learners to check in and also meet with those teachers and get some extra help there. So I talked a little bit about what that longer block looks like in terms of an on-campus learner. I do want to circle back and just highlight that it will look very similar for a remote learner as well. So what that 2-hour block of time, again, those teachers have an opportunity to do some different kinds of learning structures in there. So we heard loud and clear that what was from both students, teachers, and parents, that what key to success was live meetings with teachers and live and direct instruction. So we're working to balance that direct instruction with off-screen time as well. So for an online learner, you will log on at the same time as your on-campus peers to a particular class with your remote teacher, and they'll start it off with some direct instruction. It could be a warm-up, it could be a discussion, but something face-to-face and some direct instruction. Now, from there, the teacher may decide to break you out into small groups to work collaboratively on a project. There might be some independent work that you're doing off screen, or there might be an activity or an assessment that you're working on. While students are working on that, that teacher will maintain and keep open that Zoom classroom for students so that it's available for students to hop on, ask questions, get some extra help in real time. So there will be a variety of different activities throughout that time because we want to keep kids engaged too and not just sitting on the screens or not just listening to lecture. So we've really done a lot of work to develop what that looks like. At the end of that class, the teacher will welcome all the students back on together, an opportunity to wrap up that class together, just like we wrap up when we're on campus and in the classroom.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about Eagle, and this isn't anything particularly new to AMS. If you're familiar with AMS, we've had Eagle and ICANN within our schedule for some time, but we're doing things a little bit different this year with Eagle. So Eagle will continue to provide that opportunity to maintain services, intervention, reteaching, and extension, as well as to differentiate those learning pathways. So Eagle will occur right after students' morning meeting or students' launchpad. So it provides some data-driven instruction, whether that's your remediation, intervention, services, and extension. So we'll use data to determine which groupings there are and to place students in those. Eagle allows us to be able to quickly address any needs of students and provide for those needs. It's also an opportunity for students to engage in some choice activities. So this year we'll have some extension activities or projects that students may choose to engage in. So our content area teachers will come up with a bank of some of those activities. So as you can see, Eagle is pretty fluid and changing based on students' needs at that moment. So that's why it's so important for those students to continue to be connected with a staff member and to come up with a plan. So students what their Eagle may look like is a student may log on, they may check in on a Monday with their, say if they're in 7th grade, they'll check in with their Launchpad flight director. They will go through their plan on a Google Doc of what they plan to do for that week. Then they may log into a math intervention that they have. They'll see that a teacher has signed them up for a math intervention, so they'll go ahead and log on to a Zoom. And speaking to that, so students will be in a classroom, they'll stay within their Launchpad, or if you're a 5th, 6th grader, you'll stay within your morning meeting group. As safety allows, we'll be able to have a little more movement, but for now, students will be zooming into different teachers within that time. For students that are engaging in extension activities and aren't signed up for any intervention or small group work, they will go ahead and they'll log on, they'll still have their check-ins, but they may jump right into their independent activity or their project. The exception to remaining in a classroom and zooming in would be our special education services. So those students will move about to be able to access those services. Our remote learners will also follow the same layout. So they'll do a check-in on a Monday and a Friday. They may then, if they have an independent activity that they're working on and that's part of their plan, they may log off at that time and decide to work on that independent activity on their own time. However, if they're scheduled for an intervention or a small group activity, they'll join that activity at that time. So students will utilize a pre-formatted Google document that'll map out their plan. All their teachers that have contact with them will be able to see that plan and they could sign up with a student for a session based on that student's needs. So the next bit we're going to cover is directed study. So we touched on it a little bit when we talked about our social emotional learning, but again, there's other aspects of our directed study that are academic. So it'll provide a time for students to engage in activities that may have been compromised by a remote learning or schedule modifications. It also provides some deeper skill development in prescribed areas. So administration and staff really got together and thoughtfully identified non-negotiable activities to be included in this directed study. So it is a 45-minute block of time. So the non-negotiable activities include Dreambox, math, which was chosen because we see that from the data and research that 60 minutes a week on Dreambox significantly increases NEWA math scores compared to not participating in Dreambox. Another area that is a non-negotiable activity will be that independent reading. Again, this is based in the research, supporting that independent reading is a significant contributor to students' reading ability and success. So as you can see, we've tried to be really thoughtful on what we put into that directed study. And also with that independent reading, it gives students access to our library to utilize our on-demand books or our ebooks. We'll also have an aspect of technology within that time. So all learners, whether they're on campus or they're online, will be required to complete these daily non-negotiable activities. However, online learners may complete them on their own time. It doesn't necessarily have to be within that block of time in directed study. So now I'm going to speak a little bit to special education services. So all services will continue. They'll be individualized to meet the student's needs. So they'll have access to their services, whether they're in-class services, small group, or individualized. And we'll be implementing just as how they're written in their IEP. If there's any changes that need to be made to the IEP, the student's case manager will reach out to make those changes. While implementing those, we're going to try to mitigate how students are moving throughout the building, how we're sanitizing spaces, so that they can continue to access those interventions live and not have to do those via Zoom. Each grade level will continue to have a learning specialist and paraprofessionals assigned to them. We really work to minimize full cohorts of special education. We really wanted to make sure that students had at least a restrictive environment, but also looking at safety. So using that half grade cohort, we were able to effectively do that. Students with IEPs that will be online, the team will work with those families to come up with the best plan for those students. But again, they'll have access to their services. All of our IEP meetings and 504 meetings will be held via Zoom just to limit the amount of people in our building. During our remote time, this really has proven to be pretty successful, those Zoom meetings. So I think they'll continue to do so. And just to let families know that that governor's emergency order indicates that IEP meetings should be held within the first 30 days of schools reopening. So if families would like to have that meeting, they can just reach out to me, and my email is included in this slide, and we can set that up. And just some things around safety about how we're keeping our special education population safe, and particularly into those ones that are working one-on-one or such as our school psychologists, evaluators, counselors, speech language pathologists, or special programs that require more hands-on and assistance. We're looking at what additional PPE they may need, what sanitation protocols we need to have in place, just to make sure that they're keeping safe. So we're working with our school nurse to come up with those. So now Bethany is going to move into curriculum and assessment. Bethany, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. And it was really good what I said too, so now I'll have to remember. So I hope that over the course of this evening, we've given you a sense of what it looks like to be both an online and an on-campus learner, and really how we're trying to mirror those experiences so that whether if you're online, that that's a rigorous experience and that we can meet that goal of that year's worth of growth. And if you're on campus, we're providing the safety and that safe environment so that you are in a space where you can continue your learning. So really to tie this all together is really our curriculum and assessment. And over the past couple of years, well, past several years, we spent a lot of work really diving into our curriculum, really moving towards a mastery learning system, really reimagining what assessment looks like. And this is gonna all come together now for both of these learning modalities as well. So all of our curriculum and instruction, our teachers are working on dividing our curriculum into segments. so that each segment, while it may not be an entire unit, is really contained in such a way that at the end of the segment, if a student changes modalities, they can do so pretty seamlessly. Our teacher teams are highly collaborative. They've had time built into their day, whether they're an on-campus teacher or an online teacher, will be collaboratively designing their instruction. They'll be teaching based on the same learning targets in each segment and following a common pacing. This is really critical so that we can offer families that flexibility to choose from segment to segment. Teacher teams are going to be designing assessments, they're building them, they're supporting them, and they're going to be implementing common assessments throughout each of our segments. And students will participate in these common assessments, whether they're on campus or online, because truly the best practices, what's best for students, what gives us the most important information about how students are learning, what they've learned, what they know, is to give them an opportunity to show it, give them an opportunity to demonstrate that learning through application, through performance assessment, and whether you are online or in school, that holds true across the board. So we'll be giving these common assessments, and again, so that experience will mirror no matter what the modality is. And again, we've moved to our mastery learning system, so students are going to be assessed against those specific standards that they'll know ahead of time, that they'll have rubrics to be able to guide their process in and to understand what the expectation is for them as a learner. And now that we've rolled out Empower to our families and our community as well, you'll be able to track your students' progress just as the teachers are tracking their progress, and just as we're working with students to track their progress so that they can set goals and really take ownership of that learning. So our local assessments, so the things that we're doing and designing in-house to support our learners, are going to complement things like NEWA to really give us a way to assess that over the course of the year, that we're really meeting the needs of our students and really helping to support them in a personalized way to reach that level of growth. We know it's going to be a dynamic year, and we know no two students are alike. So we need to take advantage of this opportunity in such a way that we can support all of our learners in what they need to be successful. We hope that we've designed a really robust schedule and a robust plan for the year that's going to allow us to do that, to allow you that flexibility, to make sure that we're keeping our community healthy and safe, and really offering an opportunity for our students to thrive no matter what modality, because we might be in different locations, we might be learning in different ways, we might have different needs, but AMS is truly committed to being one community of learners. So thank you for hanging with us this evening. We'll now take some time. We'll continue to go through that Q&A. We did want to make sure that this is our AMS leadership team, that you have an ability to reach out with us if you've got questions that are specific or wonders that you really want cleared up. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can just take a look at some of these Q&As. I think my whole team has done an awesome job of answering questions as they've been popping up, but want to make sure that we take a second to address any others that are coming in as well. Great, so I'm gonna pull up our Q&A and just, if our team can take some time to go through this. I'm gonna answer these live. Heather, I see a question here about life skills and students' progress. Are they tracked in Empower? Can you speak just a little bit to how life skills students are, their progress is tracked, and how parents might know what's going on there?
Yep. So students in life skills, their progress will continue to be tracked in Catalyst, as well as along with their IEP goals. So you'll continue to get those same progress reports that you have always received. Great, and somebody's answering questions here faster than we can live. So I saw a question up there.
Sorry, I answered that one at the same time that you were calling it out. So I just answered that Heather did.
Go team, right? It's a team effort here. So I saw some questions about masks. So yes, students will be wearing masks. We will ask that you, this is going to be a partnership. It's a team effort. We are going to do everything we can to really keep your students safe when they're here on campus, and we need your help to do that. So we're going to try and maintain that 6 feet social distancing wherever we can. We need you to help support and continue that home message with your students, reminding them to put masks on when they get out of the car, reminding them to wear their masks on the bus. And I should say Butler Bus Company will be sending out more information about bus protocols and what you can expect with that. one of the questions we will ask in the parent survey that's going out shortly is what kind of transportation you'll need for your students as well.
Someone asked a question about fall sports. I don't know if you want to touch on that, Bethany. I just answered that we are working currently with the athletic and activities director here at the school as well as the high school to coordinate that, and more information will be coming. But I don't know if there's other things you wanted to add to that.
Yep, so that's where we're at right now. So we'll have a decision, and it will be probably an SAU-wide decision coming out to share out more information about fall sports when that becomes available. Will students have access to the library and physical materials? So yes, we are going to work on an on-demand delivery library where students will use our online card catalog to request books. They'll be delivered to their classrooms for them. And then once students return books, we'll make sure that they get sanitized and are set aside for an appropriate amount of time before those get signed out again. Oops. Language questions, clarification for 7th grade. So for our, so world language this year will be offered actually 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. It will follow the integrated arts model. So what that means is that unfortunately world language won't be taking place across the entire school year. We recognize that that's not the ideal to learn a world language, and hopefully in this next year we can really reimagine what world language looks like with the support of our great teachers and really come up with a plan to move us forward into the future with world language. So students will have that on a segment-based module. For our 8th graders, because they are traditionally in our program across 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that is the equivalent of the freshman year, so level 1 Spanish or French at the high school. So in order to meet those needs and really honor that commitment to our 8th graders, we're working to get a survey of information and partnering with VLAX so that we can offer that year course for them, so they'd get a high school credit if they complete that, which would allow them to go into Sauhegan and start at a level 2 world language. That's an option for families of 8th graders. It is not a requirement, but we felt that it was really important to do that. And through partnering with VLAX, there's no cost to families or the district to offer that piece there. Let's see what else here. I think I answered that world language question. Anyone feel free to jump in. Each Wednesday, okay, a question about the integrated arts schedule. So each grade level has a day of integrated arts. So currently, and you'll see the full schedules in that document, which will be easy for you to refer back to, but each grade level has their own day. So on Tuesdays, 7th grade, instead of having their core classes of science, math, etc., has an integrated arts day. On Wednesday, 8th grade has integrated arts. On Thursday, 5th grade has integrated arts. And on Friday, 6th grade has integrated arts. So they'll still begin the day with Launchpad and Eagle, but then they'll move into their 2 integrated arts courses for that day. I think this is in reference to world language. Have we confirmed available is VLAX? Yes, we've reached out to VLAX. Our assistant superintendent, Christine Landworld, has been helping with this, and they are excited to partner with us. So it will be a little bit based on our numbers, but as of right now, we have that opportunity for that. How will students be grouped for integrated arts? So for integrated arts, again, this is that fine balance of making sure that we keep students as safe as possible, but also offer a little bit of flexibility. So while we don't have a true self-contained group of 15 students that spend their entire week together, what we do have is that essentially half of a grade level for on-campus learners will be a group that may mix into integrated arts. That will offer students who might be together in their core classes a chance to be with some different students in their integrated arts courses over the course of the year. Trying to just scan through these questions here. When do we need to decide if our student is remote or in person? How long between when the survey is sent and the responses are due? The survey should be coming out in the next day, I believe. I believe will be due, you'll have 2 or 3 days to decide. We really wanted to make sure that we were having a chance to get through our parent night first to answer your questions. I just see from our superintendent that hopefully we'll be sending out that parent survey tomorrow. So you'll have a chance to choose for this first segment. When will teachers be announced? So again, this is going to be a really dynamic year. So based on what our teachers decide to be remote or in person, and based on the number of students who decide to be remote in person, at that point we'll be able to create our staff assignments. So you won't know necessarily who your student will be starting the year with for a little bit, because we need to gather all of that data so we can take care of that. Will 8th graders be moving from class to class for core classes that day? Also with 6th graders. So 6th graders, 5th and 6th is much more self-contained. So our lower school is much more self-contained. So they will be with the same teacher for their entire day there. So with the exception of breaks around directed study and lunch and recess, those sorts of things. So they'll have their STEM teacher one day, their humanities teacher another day. And that we decided to do that to really, again, limit movement and offer those teachers a chance to get really creative with that curriculum and how it's broken up over the course of the day. In 7th and 8th grade, students will have 2 academic cores a day or 2 integrated arts cores a day. So they'll either have science in the morning and then math in the afternoon, or they'll have any combination of those 4 classes. But they will essentially have 2 core classes a day. And again, because we're trying to really limit movement as we open school. What else here? Will students who are remote get material packs to work on as assignments, for example, in home and art? So we're working on making sure we get supplies to students. I know we've had some conversations with our family and consumer science teacher about putting together some materials and things like that for students. We may be reaching out to the PTA or parents who want to help pack supplies for us too to put those things together. But yes, we'll be working to get those materials to students who might need them. We also might offer opportunities that here are the materials, or families, if you want to take it to that next level, here are other materials that you might wish to research or to obtain on your own. But we'll make sure that all students have what they need to engage fully in our curriculum. What will math breaks? Oh, maybe that one got answered. John, you're too fast typing there. Let's see. So given all of the data on attendance, preference, et cetera, are we still planning to open on August 31st to be the first day of school? So the first official day of school is going to be Wednesday, September 2nd. So that was decided at the board meeting just this past Monday, just a couple of days ago, that Wednesday, September 2nd will be our first day with students. The previous 2 days of that week will be teacher professional development and making sure we are ready to welcome your students online or on campus.
I was going to jump in. There's 2 questions I'm looking at about the girls volleyball coach. I did just text to our athletic director, so I can let you know when I find out. This may happen now and it may not. So I apologize for not knowing, but I will get to the details. And staff levels being announced for each segment, will that be disclosed? I think that will be automatically disclosed given the level that we're at. So looking at the different colors that has already been expressed through our task force, knowing at that level, if we're at a certain color, you'll pretty much tell that we're in a condition or in a concern area. And exact numbers, I don't think would be something we would be sharing out.
Great. I see a question here about, sorry, questions are jumping around a little bit. How will students be taught expectations transitioning through the halls, snacks, meals? Yes. So we will be making sure we work with our students. You know, we've always really pushed at AMS that this is their school, right? And they want to be here, and it will be what they make of it. And so we're really going to continue to empower students to be part of that process. We're really going to focus on our first segment. So again, Maslow before Bloom's, we have to make sure we're taking care of that health and safety piece, both physical and mental health and safety first. So we'll focus on building relationships, but also focus on building some of those protocols. Like, what does it look like? Building up this is how we take masks on and off. We're going to be asking our school nurses to help and educate our students. We're going to be asking our teachers to help and educate students. It's going to be a community effort, and we'll try to make sure that we share as much of that at home as possible as well, so that you can continue to reinforce at home the expectations and things we're working at here with our students as well. Will accelerated math classes still be offered for 7th and 8th grade? Yes, they still will be offered. Let's see. After school clubs and intramural sports, we just simply don't have an answer to that yet. As soon as we know if that's permissible, we'll certainly share that information out. If a student starts out homeschooling, when and how would they be able to transition back to campus? So I'm going to answer this 2 ways, because I'm not 100% certain whether you mean homeschooling or remote schooling. So homeschooling is a whole other process, and if you choose to homeschool your child, you do need to send a letter to the SAU indicating that that is your plan to homeschool your student. At which point, if you decided to change back, we would work with you to help get your student back on campus or remote. If you're asking about remote learning, what we'll ask is that at each segment, students would have, and families have the opportunity to make a new election for the next segment, whether they want to be a remote learner or an on-campus learner.
Bethany, that's also the question. Go ahead.
Will students who are dismissed for 10 days join the remote teacher in an ongoing manner? So we're going to make sure that we look at each student who might be dismissed or need to be out of school on a case-by-case basis to make sure that we make the best decision for them. In most cases, that student would transition. If they're going to be out for a prolonged period of time, we want to make sure that we're continuing that same engaging learning process with them. And in most cases, they would transition to that remote classroom. I don't want to make a blanket statement, because every child and every situation is unique, and we want to make sure that we examine it to make sure that we're doing the best thing for that student and for that learner.
Bethany, is there a question in reference to the start of school? So it's starting on the 2nd, and if I have it correct, I think we always had this in the calendar. We had a 4-day weekend for Labor Day, correct? So the Friday, the 4th, school is closed, and the 7th, obviously, for Labor Day, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just confirming that one. Thank you.
Correct. Where can we find the dates for each segment? That is listed in the SAU 39 plan, and I'm wondering if, while I'm talking, if someone might be able to pop that link to that plan in the chat for me here. But you can find that on the SAU website. Let's see.
There's a question I think you might have answered. The students been going remote. They've been going on campus all along. Now they're in quarantine. Can they join? Obviously, they can join, because all of our planning and prep is all synced up, right? So the students who are off campus are doing the same exact schedule as students on campus. So it's very easy for us to transition, whether they be in school or out of school. So yes, if your student goes out for a period of time, they can just link in through the remote. All their assignments will be there. They'd still have a connection with an adult in the building. All those things would still continue.
Correct. When additional students opt for remote, will they be added in with the teacher or a previous teacher? Again, to make sure that class sizes stay in that kind of 23-ish size. We're going to look at that as a case-by-case basis. You know, our teachers teaching online will have slightly larger classes, just to, again, it shouldn't be an extreme difference, but enough to maintain and prioritizing our smaller class sizes here on campus for health and safety reasons. We're going to have to look at that as a case-by-case basis and adjust as we go. We're going to create the best plan we can in terms of balanced numbers based on the information we get to start a segment. Hopefully be able to build in some flexibility into those numbers for unforeseen things that might happen over the course of the segment. But it will be a dynamic process, and it will be a learning process for all of us. The good news is, because our segments are short, it allows us the ability to pivot really quickly. So if we need to change learning environments for your child, if we need to make adjustments, The beauty of these segments is it's going to allow us to be really nimble to make sure that we meet the needs of your learner. How will
reference to remote, right? Remote participants, they'll be live on Zoom. Yes, we are using the Zoom product again, and it will be again at times synchronous, at times asynchronous. That's the jargon we use, and we apologize again for our edu-speak. Synchronous means live, you're actually real time with a person. Asynchronous means you could be watching a recording or just getting your instruction via a written assignment.
Is there any flexibility for attendance for kids that end up getting COVID? Yes. So kids still get sick, right? So we know that we're going to be sending kids home who might need to quarantine or be home, but be mildly symptomatic. But we know that kids still get sick, right? So we will make accommodations for that. If your child can't participate in learning for a day, we'll still have sick days, those sorts of things. And we'll work to make sure that they get what they need to catch up when they're feeling better. So again, just because you can be in a remote class if you're not feeling well, if you're not feeling well, then you may not be available to learn and be in that space where you can really access the learning. So we want to make sure that we're not trying to get rid of sick days altogether, because students and staff still do get sick.
Right. Somebody said, how are we all going to not burn out? That's a great question. We're continuing to be very supportive of one another. We are a very strong community, and remember, we do love our jobs. So we will find the ways to keep ourselves going and look forward to the next day each day. If your child chooses to attend in person for the first segment, but then changes their mind because they don't feel safe, yes, you can change. You don't have to wait till the next segment. You're not on a train till the next stop. You can start and stop in between. Obviously, knowing ahead really helps us with numbers and counts and being able to assign the child correctly into the remote class or an in-person class. So it'd be better to know ahead of time. But again, if that happens, we can flex just as well.
Let's see. Will there be maximums for the number of students and families allowed to choose on-campus learning? Will there be any limits enforced? So I think we'll know a lot more once we see numbers. We really are trying to prioritize 6 feet of social distancing, recognizing that schools are not necessarily built for 6 feet of social distancing with students. In terms of maximums, I think part of that will come out as families elect, and where part of the design of the color system is that it will naturally start to help us with the numbers of students that will be on campus. See a couple more questions I'm seeing in here. Another calendar question, September 8th is planned to be a Clark, well, yes, so September 8th will be a remote learning day for all of our students, regardless of whether they've chosen to be on campus or remote learners. That will be a remote learning day, and it will be a great chance for us really early on to test out, to get kids comfortable online, regardless of whether they're on campus or an online learner, to go through some of those protocols to make sure that kids know how to get on Zoom, how to navigate Google Classroom, and we'll be working to design that day to support that as well.
Bethany, did you cover the question? I see another one again in reference to foreign language, but this is a 7th grade student wanting to further.
So right now, we're offering that VLAX piece to just our 8th grade families in terms of that partnership. But I can certainly circle back. I'll take your question and certainly circle back, or feel free to send me a message and we can talk further. Are the segment schedules the same as the other schools? Yes. So all of the segments across SAU 39 are the same, and we hope that that helps families in their planning and processes to really be simplified. Will twins be assigned to the same classroom? So we are going to do our very best to honor all of those placement letters that you sent to us. Please be patient with us as we try to figure that out, because again, this is a dynamic situation. Twins, if you have a strong preference on twins, I would say please let us know. Traditionally, what we try to do, unless a parent asks us to do otherwise, is to place twins on the same team. so that it just cuts down on and makes that parent-teacher communication a little bit simpler. So again, that's really a case-by-case basis, and if you have communicated a preference to us, we will really try to honor that. Oh, one more question here. What exactly does integrated arts mean? Everything is not a core class. So our integrated arts classes that will be offered and scheduled during those 2-hour blocks of time are music, family and consumer science, art, innovation and design, world language. Is that all of them? And health and wellness. In addition, our computer classes, we're working on a piece that's going to be a self-paced computer aspect for our students to help supplement their skills, and that technology piece will happen during directed study for them. And for our online learners, they could choose to do it differently at another point in the day. That hour-and-a-half smart lunch for our students, really for our online learners, I want them to think about that as an opportunity for flex time. So if what they need is to have lunch with their family and go outside and play, then that's what that time is designed for, and they can choose to do those activities at the time that works for them. Also our physical education program, so we've got some modifications for that for this year, and that will be assessed during the same segments that students are participating in wellness, so that will happen there. And then again, we're going to also push out challenges for each segment, hopefully, for families to participate in as well with our students. So I would just say to the community again, thank you so much for being here with us on again, a beautiful summer evening. We really appreciate your time and a chance to share out our plan with us. Like we said, we're incredibly proud of this process. It doesn't belong to any one person, but it was really a collaborative effort, and we couldn't do it without you and the feedback that you've all provided to help us really refine this as we continue to work to meet the needs of your students. We miss them terribly. We're excited to welcome them back, whether that's online or whether that's on campus. We wish you all well. And I will say that this is not the end of the conversation. So you have our contact information. You know how to get a hold of us if you need us or you have specific questions. If you have questions of the school nurses, I know Nurse Sarraf would be happy to help field questions. Any of us, please feel free to reach out. We're all in this together. It's going to be a dynamic year, and hopefully some truly silver linings with what might be possible as we reimagine what our school year looks like. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of our one community of learners, and we look forward to welcoming your students in the fall. Take care, everyone.